Uh, and oh, sorry, my SD card got full. Um, but that was my first real relationship out of high school that wasn't, you're my girlfriend, you're my boyfriend kind of thing. This was an actual real relationship. So we broke up, and it hurt me pretty bad. It was the first real heartbreak I had had, and it really messed with me. And I left her house and walked across the street to where my friend was that moved down there with us. And I told him, hey, this is what happened. And he was there with his girlfriend at the time, and they were having problems. So uh, when that, so he went and did his thing, and this other lady showed up, and I had met her a couple times, and she was a friend of the girl who just broke up with me. So on that, as sad as it is to say, we ended up hooking up that night. And I know that's not a good thing to do. I don't recommend it. But that started into another relationship. And that one got a lot more serious. That one lasted about 3 or 4 months. And I ended up moving in with her and her parents. And I lived with her and her parents for a couple months. And then, she had kind of a falling out with her parents, and so I was like, okay, you want to go to Missouri? And she agreed, so I took her and packed up, and we went to Missouri. From that point, coming back to Missouri, very little money. All we had was her car. So until we got on our feet, I stayed with my parents. And at that stage in my life, I was not wanting to have kids. Kids was not an option for me at the time, because I knew myself too well. I knew with my behavior and my actions, I don't need any children right now. Just no, that's not an option. And so she was on birth control. So, and yes, living in sin. We were having sex, the whole nine yards. And one day, she woke up and she said, my ear hurts. And I'm like, okay, and we'll see how it goes. And for the first part of the morning, we dealt with that, and she ended up, it got so bad that she was crying, and she just kept holding her ear and all that. So I was like, okay, we're going to take you to the doctor. So, and this is probably 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. So I ended up having to take her to the ER, and they checked her out and all that, and took diagnosis of, you got an earache. Okay, so prescription, give it to them, go get it filled at the pharmacy, and she starts taking her meds, and me, I don't claim to be a smart guy. Not at all. So she was taking her birth control, and she was taking her antibiotics. unbeknownst to me, antibiotics can kill the effects of birth control. So, jump ahead a little bit. I'm working at this little fiberglass shop here in Neosho, Missouri, you know, and I come home from lunch one day, and because my job was probably 700 feet from my house, so I was just walking back and forth. I didn't even have to use the car, wasting gas. So I just walked across people's backyard in our house and across the road, and there was my job. So, so I came home for lunch, and she had me lunch made and stuff, and then dropped the bomb on me. And this, for me at the time, this was an atomic bomb. I mean, nuclear bomb, you couldn't get any bigger than this. But she told me she was pregnant. And I was like, no. And she's like, yeah. And it's like, man. Because, like I said a little bit ago, I knew that I was not mentally right for kids. But I was acting out and I was doing all kinds of crazy stuff, but I still, within me, I still had my morals that my mom had instilled in me. So I knew that, I knew that, okay, I got her pregnant, so I'm going to have to step my game up, and I'm going to have to be a dad. And for the first couple weeks, it really messed with my head, and I wanted to, walk away, go this, do that, the whole decide, and I decided, okay, we're going to do this. I can do this. This is my chance to give, a kid a life that was better than what mine had been previously. No drama and all that no. So I thought, okay, we're going to do this. And it lasted 2 or 3 months. And she was getting up into it, and at the time I was still smoking weed and all that, and basically she got scared and ran home to mom. So broke up with me and just called her mom and dad, said come get me, and the next morning her parents were there. She loaded up her car in a trailer, loaded up all of her stuff, and she was gone. I kept in contact with her. I was making phone calls and calling and finding out how she was doing with the baby and all that. And at the time, I got a little out there. It was really starting to weigh on me, the fact that she had left, and I felt like I was having my child ripped from me, because she said that she wasn't sure where the relationship was going, all that type stuff. But she basically said, it's over, and which hurt me, and so I lashed out even more. And I had this circle of friends, my weed smoking friends and all that, and the alcohol and all that. This was the juncture that I was introduced to methamphetamines. And I got into that. And So I was kind of out there, and but I was still kind of trying to keep a line up with what was going on with my child. Um, but it wasn't happening. Um, then one day, it was June 3rd, 2000. I I called. She wasn't there. Her brother, which is mentally disabled, um, he, I asked him, "Do you know where she's at? Where I can reach her?" And he's like, "She's at the hospital having the baby." I was like, "Are you sure that's what she's doing, or she's at a checkup?" He's like, "No, she's having the baby." I was like, "Are you sure?" And he's like, "Yeah." So the town she lived in, there was only one hospital, so I knew where to call. So I called up the hospital, and they told me she was there, and I talked to her, and she was not all that happy to hear from me. And so, you know, at that time, my car was broke down. So, and I knew I had to get to Arkansas. I live in Missouri. Arkansas is about a 5.5 hour drive from my house where I was. So I went over to a buddy's house and was like, "Hey, this is the deal. Blah 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 blah." And he's like, "Dude, here's my car. Go." I was like, "You sure?" And he's like, "Yep, go. Why ain't you gone yet?" I was like, "Okay." So I jumped in his car, hauled to Arkansas. I got there like 11 o'clock or so that night, and visiting hours ends at 8. So I was like, okay. So I just went to my family's house in the next town. Said, "Hey, I'm in town. Blah blah blah. They're having a baby. Too late for me to go see him. So I'll go see him in the morning." And it's like, "Sure, you can crash on the couch." So, I hung out with my family that night and went and uh, got up the next morning, had some coffee, smoked a cigarette, and mind you, that at this point, from point A to point B, Jesus had never crossed my mind. God had never crossed my mind. The things I was doing, I was not worried about. I was going to be punished by God. So, that being said, um, I got to the hospital, and I walked in. Her parents were there, and all this, and I had to wash my hands up this here so I could hold the baby, which I'm not sure where that came from, because there was nothing wrong with her. But that's a side point. Um, but I held her, and I got to spend a little bit of time with her, and I didn't see her again until she was 2. And at that point, I had a new girlfriend. I was engaged, the whole 9 yards, blah blah blah. And so me and my new girlfriend said, "Okay, I want to go down because it's getting close to her 2nd birthday. I want to go see her." And I knew where she was, so we went down there. You know, Really uncomfortable situation, really. Uh, you know, Ex-girlfriend, new girlfriend. You guys know how it is. Um, but and I got there, and there was this beautiful little blue-eyed blonde little girl sitting there. And she was sitting there playing, and she was kind of interacting with me, and I wasn't really sure she knew who I was, and that was really bothering me, because I didn't want to say, "Hey, come to Daddy," because I didn't know if she knew I was her dad, because her mom had a guy living with her, um, so I didn't know what they were telling her or what the deal was. And my girlfriend at the time, she looked at it, she's like, "Do you know who this guy is?" And she's like, "Yeah, that's my daddy." And trust me, guys, that did it for me. I was like, okay, well, at least my child knows who her dad is. she don't think this other guy's her dad, or anything of that type of nature. But I spent time with her, took pictures and all that, and then I headed back to Missouri. After that, her mom changed her number, moved. I didn't know where she was or anything like that. And from that point, I had lost all contact. I looked on Facebook. I mean, I was looking everywhere trying to find out how to contact her. And it's like she just fell off the face of the earth. And that really messed with me. And it was like I reverted back into my old ways from the tragic death of my brother. How I rebelled. And yet again, I rebelled again. I started getting into harder drugs, coke, mixing coke and heroin and meth, and going through a bottle of vodka in a night, in a big gallon. It just really just going crazy. But then the girlfriend I had then, now mind you, when I left, she was only 2, and she was born in 2000. So in 2004, 2003, 2004, I got my new girlfriend pregnant. And I thought, great, here I go again. And I was there for when she was born, and everything was fine. But I was still acting out, even though I had my new daughter. I still wasn't right inside me. And I was going out. I started stealing major things and all this kind of stuff, and it was slowly catching up to me, and then it caught up with me. I stole some rare coins from a flea market. Boom. Ended up in jail. Ended up being with a felony because it was over $500. Then, boom, broke into a house. Second felony. Second-degree burglary. And so, at that point, the judicial system was getting kind of tired of me. And then on meth for a 2-week binge of stupidity, broke into another place. And the judge said, fine. So, sent me to prison. And because I was all messed up because of the drugs and stuff when I was doing all this, that when I got to St. Joseph, Missouri, for them to say, okay, what kind of criminal are you and where you're going to go, because of the drugs, they said, okay, you're going to do 120 treatment. So they sent me to this, basically as a monastery with razor wire around the fence, and I did treatment. And basically, it was basically to humiliate you. They put you in these little groups called families, and you had to write essays and stuff, and they had a push-up system. So basically, anybody in your little group family thing, basically you do something, they could pull you up and write you up, and your counselor guy, the family coordinator thing, at the end of the day, he'd gather up all those, and you'd sit there, have this procedure, and where you had to, okay, you got pulled up for this behavior, okay, your consequence, you gotta do a public service announcement about your behavior while acting like Barbie, or acting like Barney, or Elmo. Just anything he thought of that would be embarrassing to you. Or you had to sing a song like this or whatever. A really humiliating situation. And you knew that you couldn't say nothing about it or couldn't do anything about it, because if you did, they would pull your program and you'd do your whole time, so you wouldn't be getting out in 120 days. So basically they kind of had you against a wall in a hard place. But I did that and I completed the program and I got out. My girlfriend at the time was still there, and she had my daughter. They came, picked me up, and went to St. Louis and did the arch and all that, and then ended up in St. Clair, Missouri. And I was doing my parole there, and I was doing really good. I got on at a little cafe there in St. Clair, and it was not bad. I really didn't get along with her parents, but after about 6 months, I decided I want to go back to Neosho. So I got a hold of my parole officer, and he's like, "Man, you're doing great. I don't have a problem. I'll push the paperwork through, and I'll have you transferred to Neosho. When you want to head down there?" I was like, "Well, give me a couple weeks. I'm gonna save up a couple paychecks, and then I'm gonna go down there." And he's like, "Fine," And he fed the paperwork to Neosho, and I came back down here, and was here for about a year and a half, and still, during this whole time, God had not crossed my mind. Actually, no, I take that back. While I was in prison, I went and watched a couple films that they were doing on Sunday, and went to a couple services that they had. But it really wasn't anything that was grasping my heart or anything. It was just something to do. But that was it. I wasn't feeling guilty about anything or anything like that. But back to the main story. But I got out, and everything was going alright, and then I found out that while I was in prison, my girlfriend had been sleeping around with the buddy that I had moved to Arkansas with. So at that point, I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm not doing the whole cheating thing. I can't get past it. So I left. And at this point, I was working at the Wendy's in Neosho, Missouri. And a little while after I had left my, I guess for lack of better terms, baby mom, I guess, because we never got married. I got with and married my manager at Wendy's. And my baby mama, she started acting all crazy and stuff, and allowed my daughter, while she was at her brother's house, to be molested. So I took upon that, and I jumped out, and I took her away from her and moved on with my life. My marriage to my wife only lasted 5 years. But amongst this 5 years, mind you, now this is 2007. I'm still working at Wendy's. My wife's sister and husband had started going to church. They had become members of a church here in Neosho. Abundant Life. Check it out. Um, but they asked me, "Hey, you want to go to service with me?" And I was like, "No, I'm not really interested." And they kept asking me, like, "Nah, I'm gonna hang out here. The game's on, you know, that kind of thing." So, jump forward a little bit in time. We're at my sister-in-law's house, and my brother-in-law's, "Hey, come here." I was like, "Yeah," and went into his bedroom. He has a desk and his computer and all that. He's like, "I want you to check out a song." And I was like, "Okay, what kind of song is it?" He's like, "Oh, they sound like Nickelback." I'm like, "Okay." I was really big into Nickelback at the time. So he's like, "Okay." So he started playing this song. And the beginning of the song, the riff and the drum beat had grabbed me. And I was like, And I'm sitting there listening to the song, and I'm sitting there like, "Hey, this sounds pretty good." And, oh, and by the way, the song was Until the Whole World Hears by Casting Crowns. And by the first verse, it dawned on me. This is a Christian song. This is a gospel song. And I just looked at him and was like, "What are you doing, dude?" He's like, "I'm trying to reach you." And I'm like, "Okay." And, we kept doing that whole thing. Night, had dinner, played, I think it was Guitar Hero. The drums, the guitar, and all that. And, yeah. And then me and my wife went home. But for some reason, I don't know why, but for some reason, that song kept playing in my head. I don't know if it was the riff or what, but something. And then a couple days went by, and I worked at Wendy's. My wife worked at Wendy's. My mother-in-law worked at Wendy's. My sister-in-law worked at Wendy's. My mother-in-law was the general manager. My sister was the assistant, and my wife was the other manager. I was just a crew. And with that many family members, who do you think I got all the crap jobs? But at work, I was a closer. So after 10 o'clock, I could kick my music on, and I'm sitting there jamming out. Most of the time, I was either closing the grill or dining room. And if I was closing the dining room, I'd have my stereo out there on the round table that most Wendy's have, and I was just jamming out. I was doing Metallica, Garth Brooks, Keith Urban, all mostly secular music. And they kept, my sister-in-law and my brother-in-law and my wife kept saying, "Man, about this whole music thing, and about going to church." And then one weekend, my brother-in-law texts me, he's like, "Hey, you want to bring Guitar Hero over and have dinner?" "Sure." So, I told my wife, "Hey, we're going to go over to your sister's house for dinner, and we're going to play, Xbox." "Okay." So, we get over there, and yet again, my brother-in-law is like, "Hey, why don't you check out one more song?" And I was like, "Dude, the last one you had played in my head for a while." And he's like, "Okay, just one more song." And it's like, "Okay." So, he played a song, "This Man" by Jeremy Camp. And, for some reason, it got me. And, oh, by the way, I still love Jeremy Camp. I listen to him all the time now. Okay, but chill out. But that song, for some reason, and he played a video, it was on YouTube, and it showed scenes from the Passion of the Christ movie. They had clipped scenes and played it throughout the song. Somebody made the video. It wasn't made by Jeremy Camp. And I was like, but the meaning behind the song is what got me. And I was like, okay, I get that, okay, you know. And like the last song, I went home and that song just kept eating at me and eating at me and eating at me. And next time I went over to my brother-in-law's house, excuse me, I was like, man, I brought a CD. I know it's just one song. Can you put that song on there? He's like, you really want that song? I was like, yeah, for some reason I like that song. And I recommend, if you have never listened to that song, listen to it. Or actually, I should say, listen to any song that has come out of Jeremy Camp's mouth. There's so much power to his music. But, okay. But he was like, okay, here, I won't waste your whole CD. So I'll just put what I think you'll like on it, based on what I know you like. I was like, okay. So he made me a CD. And so I got home, and my wife, I didn't have to work the next day. My wife went to bed. So I was like, okay, you're gonna go to bed. I'm gonna sit here and I'm gonna play Xbox and I'm gonna check out the CD. And she's like, okay. So she went to bed. I got my Xbox all set up and all this, and I started the CD. First song on the CD, This Man by Jeremy Camp. So I listened to that, and still today one of my favorite songs by him. But the second song was a band called Third Day. Cry Out to Jesus. And by the time that song was, I was like, cool. And then there was another song, Revelation song by Phillips, Craig and Dean. I'm not going to sit here and name off all of the songs that are on the CD. But by the end of the CD, something was happening. And that following weekend, my brother-in-law, hanging out with him on Saturday. Hey man, you want to go check out service with us tomorrow? And I was like, sure, why not? What can it hurt, And I had already been listening to this CD. I had listened to this CD probably 15-20 times this week, in between point A and point B. So I did that, and I got there, and it was your typical church setting. Everybody